Okay, next up, we've got a question from Chad. He says, if I'm planning to upgrade homes, but will keep the current home as a rental, does the rule of putting 20% down on your second home or upgrade home still apply? It's a juicy question.
I'm going to upgrade homes.
So he's going to keep his home as a rental.
Okay.
Does he still need to put 20% down on the next home?
Let me talk through a few things first, because this is what we call a compound question. You know how they always saved at the end of the test when you get to the advanced classes that word problem that's going to have multiple things? That's what this is, because the first question is, primary residence, do you sell it or do you turn it into a rental property? I feel like as a former tax preparer, I have to at least give you something you need to think about. There is nothing wrong, because I know this is kind of one of those, if you're in the real estate marketplace, it's like a house hack type thing that they teach people, live in this house and then move out and then go on.
The whole premise behind Automatic Millionaire by
especially if you're living in a duplex or a quadplex, I completely get this. But if you're living in a traditional, normal house, I do want to remind you that one of the quirky things about the tax code is that if you live in a house 2 out of 5 years and it's truly your primary residence, the government lets you it's almost like a magic wand, wipe away $250,000 for a single person, $500,000 for a married couple. It just abracadabra, gone, poof. You just get to put that money in your pocket after you sell. And it's an incredible thing. There's just not that many things that the government gives you tax-free, to the point that the builder who built my house, I think it's the craziest thing, but I understand why he does it, is that he moves every 2 years. Because he's just stacking. I mean, think about that. He's hitting $500,000. If you're a builder where you can build a house at cost and then sell it at retail, you're basically, the government might as well be telling you, hey, I'm going to give you an extra $250,000 of income
every couple of years,
tax free. So that's actually the equivalent of like $400,000 of income annually if you're stacking up all these things together. So Chad, that's the first thing to consider. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, because I'll tell you from my own experience share. When I moved from the state of Georgia to the state of Tennessee, I couldn't sell my primary residence. The market just was, I guess I could have done a fire sale.
But it didn't make sense
But it didn't make, I just felt like we were in the part of the real estate cycle that if I just hung in there a little longer, I could sell my house at a better price. So I was actually selling my house at the time, if I would have sold it at market, for less than I paid. So there was no gain. So all that I just shared about the tax-free gain
wouldn't have mattered.
Didn't matter. So I did turn my primary residence into a rental, and I knew that I was running a clock in the background, because there's a chance you could do both. And the fact that you could have a house for a rental, but if you still could say, I lived in this house 2 of the last 5 years, there might be a balance there. But when it comes to, you go into it knowing you're going to buy this to immediately turn it into a rental, that might be a good decision, but I just want to make sure you knew about this unique tax opportunity, so you at least measure twice on that before you just instinctively, because you watched a YouTube video, said, well, I'm just going to do this 8 times and have 8 different rental properties in my name. Just know all the tax ramifications with each option.
So the crux of your question was, so I'm going to buy this second house, do I have to put 20% down? Do I have to put 25% down? I'm going to argue, it's an upgrade.
I agree with that.
Whenever you're upgrading, if you're moving, like you deciding to move from your current house into another house and still keeping that house as a rental is a decision. It is not a need, it's a preference that you're making. Well, whenever we upgrade, whenever we move to our second house, we do have to adhere to 20% down payment. We got to put 20% down so that we have equity. And I would argue, especially if you still have your primary mortgage levered, that primary house, it matters all that much more that you have equity in this other house, because you want to make sure you keep your total debt burden inside of acceptable realms. If you have 3% down on your primary and then you move out a couple years later and maybe you only got 7% equity in there, and you try to go do 3% equity in your next primary, you are just borrowing your life. You don't want to do that. So I would argue, before you can upgrade, you do indeed need to put 20% down for your new house.
Well, I think we give you that rule that you can put down 3%, 5% on that first house, because we're just trying to give you the flexibility. We know how hard it is to come up with that initial 20%. We want to get you on the train, so we come up with a rule that lets you take advantage of that. But when you go to a strategy that you're going to move from that house to the next one, if you did this, if we allowed this on each one of these, You realize you were becoming a real estate investor. That's a step 8 of
That's
the financial
right.
order of
That's exactly
operations
right.
thing. You never got your financial foundation, because I love real estate investing. We do real estate investing. Real estate investing can be incredible because you are building returns using levered debt. But there's one catch. When the music stops and you don't have deep pockets, you can go broke. So you better have the financial foundation underneath you. So that's why I don't love the thought that you just buy one house with 3%, buy the next house with 3%, because you are just levering your life. And when the music stops, you would be caught swimming naked. You'd be skinny dipping.
Yep.
Everybody would know it. You'd go broke. That doesn't work. So I want you to do this right, Chad. So I would make sure, if you can do this strategy where you are turning primary residence into rental properties, but you only get the first one at 3% or 5%, all the rest, you need to make sure you're actually paying attention to risk, reward, and making sure that you're not skinny dipping. Yeah, you can make money doing that with real estate investing if you hit the market cycle just right. But there's a chance that the music will stop, and that's part of what we create this content for. So you know all the elements you should be considering, so you actually do it right. A lot of times you're trying to build your financial resources up so you can go then do rich people stuff. If you do rich people stuff when you don't have the assets underneath you,
Get yourself a problem.
people can tell when you're faking it. And by the way, the banks will be able to tell, and you'll be wondering, you'll be that woeful tell that Dave Ramsey and others who did that tell you on why they don't like debt anymore. So I love debt because I've used it right, and I know the time and place where it's used. But there are a lot of folks that are using leverage because they get addicted to that compounding effect that you can do with levered debt, and they get caught with it.